Grade 12 Economics. Please welcome Mr. Mhlongo. We are back here today on a revision for paper 2. Remember, tomorrow is our day for paper 2, so that we complete our academic year in a good note. So this lesson will assist you and help you in order to be able to do better and do well in your paper 2. I would like to congratulate you on your paper 1. I know you did very well. The paper was too much accessible for you, and we pray that whatever that we'll be doing here will also make the paper to be more accessible tomorrow for you. We wish you all the best for tomorrow. I'm Mr. Mhlongo. This is the revision session for economics. So topics to be covered are microeconomics as well as economic issues. So please join me. Let's see what we have in the pocket for you. So this is paper 2 revision. All topics that have been covered in paper 2, from both microeconomics and economic issues, will be covered here. This revision will be very much intensive to ensure that it expands opportunities for you to be able to access the paper very easily tomorrow. So as usual, we are starting with the question paper structure. As for tomorrow, we are done with this. So where are we now? We are in paper 2. You can see paper 2. Our paper is still 150 marks. 2 hours given to you or allocated. Main topics are as follows. We have microeconomics. Under microeconomics, we have a perfect market, imperfect markets, as well as market failures. And then on the second topic, as the main topic, we have contemporary economic issues, where we have inflation, tourism, as well as environmental sustainability. So this is the part that must be expected tomorrow. These topics will appear in the examination. How will be explained as we go on with the presentation. So details on the question paper. Each paper, or like paper 2, contains 150 marks. Duration is 2 hours, like I've said. And then there are 6 questions in there. So we have section A, section B, and section C. Our section A, as usual, is compulsory. We have to answer section A, where we have multiple choice in 1.1, 1.2 matching items, 1.3 descriptions. Section B, there are 3 questions. Each question consists of 40 marks. So you have question 2, question 3, and question 4. So more details are coming on what we can expect on each question, which topics will appear. Section C, there are 2 questions. We have question 5 and question 6. We have a choice here. So you choose one question between question 5 and question 6. And then between question 2, 3, and 4, you choose 2 questions in section B. We'll continue. So this is what I was saying. Section A and question 1, multiple choice. I think our strategies have worked for you. With the multiple choice in paper 1 being the way it was, surely you guys managed to get 30 over 30 in there. We need to be proud of that. And then matching items, column A and column B, it's 8 marks. And then give a term or concept, 6 marks. So it gives you 30. So I'm still repeating the same thing. You need to ensure that to maximize your opportunities to score marks in section A. Section A is very important. You need to get those marks and go to section B with high confidence. Going to section C, then you grab everything. Also remember, I have noted that most of you are always worried about essays. I know that essay is one of those important topics, because if you know an essay, we are sure we have about 26 marks guaranteed or 30 marks guaranteed in your bed before additional part. However, an essay is not everything also. Section B carries 80 marks for you. Section A carries 30 marks for you. All of those sections are very much important. Treat all sections the way you treat section C. If you can do that, you will surely get maximum marks that you want according to your target in this paper. The other thing about paper 2, paper 2 is unlike paper 1, especially under microeconomics. Under microeconomics, we deal with facts. We have less of your opinions in there. You provide the answer the way it should be. There are no opinions. It is very rare you come across opinions in microeconomics. So you need to ensure that you know your story if you choose to do most of the microeconomics questions, because they need facts. There are no assumptions. There are no I think. No. So these are the topics distribution per question. So we have question 1. In our question 1, we have microeconomics as well as contemporary economic issues that are distributed equally in our section A. Question 2 in section B, we have perfect markets, imperfect markets, market failures. These are the topics that you will come across in question 2. So be aware that question 2 is just the microeconomics. So that simply tells you that if we are strong in microeconomics and we have intensified to study in microeconomics, this will be the question for you. And then question 3, it will be contemporary economic issues. So in there you have inflation, tourism, as well as environmental sustainability. So the difference between these two questions, question 2 and question 3, the difference is the question 2 is the one that I just said, the facts that should be provided. You need to be able to draw graphs. You need to be able to interpret graphs. And also, you must be able to calculate, because we calculate the most there, where you have to calculate the profits, total revenues, marginal revenues, etc. You need to be able to do that. With this economic issues, question 3, the topic is open. That's when even your ideas flow the most. But here, there is no general knowledge. You can try it here, but here, we don't have general knowledge. We provide the facts. So that's the difference between the two. So in question 4, the question 4 is a part of microeconomics and economic issues. So it combines both chapters or both main topics. Each of them consists of 20 marks, 20 marks. And then question 5, section C, our essays. So we have question 5 in there with the microeconomics. So essays will be distributed to you, and then I will do almost all of them that are to ensure that you get it easy to approach your question paper tomorrow. So the microeconomics essay will come in question 5, where you will have to choose between question 5 and question 6. So in question 6, it will be contemporary economic issues. So if you know that you are strong in microeconomics, simply ensure that you exhaust those topics relevant, so that you will be able to simply grab the essay and go on. If you are strong in economic issues, just grab it and go. Ensure that your study is you intensify. But if you are strong in both, then the paper is yours. Paper will not be difficult. We have seen paper 1. Paper 1 was the way it was, but you need to be careful. The easy paper is always challenging, because if the paper is easy, you tend to relax. As you relax, you make most of mistakes or much mistakes when you answer your questions. And then it becomes an issue, because memo will be strict while the paper is too easy. So let's see what we can share with you here as we prepare you for the paper tomorrow. So multiple choice as usual. You need to read the statement with understanding and ensure that you have an answer in your mind before you choose the given answer in the given options. Be precise when choosing the answer, because when you are giving options, one option will be correct. Avoid going there guessing. You don't have to guess. You need to read each statement with understanding and pick up the answer. That will be good for you. Do not guess an answer. Contextualize, classify given options to the statement, then you get the correct answer. If you go there and get in 1.1, you can get it in 0. Ensure that you read with understanding, you provoke the answer in your mind, then you choose that answer that is given in 4 options. And then we'll continue. Do not leave any space unattended. Ensure that you attend to every question, answer everything in there. Don't leave anything. Don't leave something with the hope that you will be coming back later to recover. Just answer everything and go on. You don't have to write an answer on top of another answer. Don't say B and then you notice that it's wrong. You say C. This thing is invisible now. You won't be marked for this. You will get 0 for this. So ensure that if ever the answer you thought is B, then it's wrong. You scratch it. You write C if you think is correct. And ensure that you do so that you cannot lose marks that cheap. That will be giving you 16 marks. Remember, it is very important and every mark counts in this case. Matching items. You need to know your descriptions for column A before searching for corresponding options. In this case, like I've been saying, you are given a description or you are given a concept in column A. Know the meaning of the concept. Know the surroundings of the concept. Then you look at column B, you pick up the answer. If you don't know the meaning of the concept in column A, it will be difficult for you to link the concept in column B. And then always start with answers you know. Ensure that you provide those answers that you are sure they are correct. Then you go back. What do you do now? You double check now those that are remaining. You try to make a link and a connection. That will give you a direction on how to go. Then you get your 8 marks. Use elimination method on the remaining options. So as you are doing column A and column B, you must always eliminate. What you know must be done first. And then after, you go to what you are not sure or you are not certain about. Then you start choosing. Contextualize remaining options to column A, and then do not leave anything unattended. Ensure that you attend to everything, and then you can get your 8 marks. Normally, the majority of you are able to get 8 marks in this section or in this part of section A. And then 1.3 descriptions. It is very important for you to know your terminology. There is this belief that if you know this concept, you get 6/6 here. That means you know the content. So by doing so, it will be easy for you to access section B and section C because you know the content. You cannot guess here. Guessing will just be something else for this part because there are no options available. You just have to provide the answer based on the definition given to you. Always use mind the gap definitions at the beginning of each chapter or each topic. It will guide you because this concept that are required here are from the mind the gap. Do not use abbreviations or acronyms. They are not allowed. Do not use abbreviations. Let's say the answer should be marginal cost. If you say MC, it will be wrong. Ensure that you use full answers. Do not leave anything unattended. We know that you normally leave spaces here. Do not leave anything unattended. Answer, contextualize, understand the statement, and provide the answer based on the content. Then you will get 6/6, which will be giving you 30/30. Then you go on to the next section. So this part of the presentation, we are just providing some questions and some answers just to show you how you should be answering questions. So we are starting with the lower order. Name any 2 objectives of the anti-monopoly policy. So in there we talk about there should be no restrictions to on entry, meaning there should be no barriers to entry. Business should be free to enter the market. Curb the economic power. Businesses should not be using power to restrict the entry of other businesses. And then also businesses had to become competitive. So they should be, business should be more competitive because of high level of competition within the market. New trade agreements. So there will be new trade agreements being agreed upon within the economy or within the market. Name any 2 objectives of the commission policy. Remember, these topics can come in a form of the lower order, but they can develop also to the middle order and higher order. Always, like I said in paper 1, as you are given the question in lower order, you must be able to develop the question to the middle order and to the higher order. That will make you the star for this paper 2, and you will master everything. So name any 2 objectives of the commission policy. Prevent monopolies from abusing their power. Regulate formation of makers and acquisitions who wish to exercise market power. To stop firms from using restrictive practices like fixing prices, dividing markets. So for the previous question, there are so many objectives of the Commission Policy Act of South Africa. State any 2 criteria for an activity to be regarded as tourism. So there must be the purpose of the visit in the particular area. You don't just have to go. You go because there's a certain reason for you to tour into the particular area. There must be no payment expected, no remuneration to be given to that particular person that is touring to the particular area. Minimum of 1 night. So a person should be sleeping over for the minimum of 1 night. And then maximum of 1 year, meaning a person should not be spending his or her time in there for the period of more than a year. Traveling distance from, not less than 160 kilometers, should be 160 and above, meaning 161 kilometers and above. And that activity can be regarded as tourism, meaning a person living from the usual place to unusual place should be traveling above 160 kilometers for that trip. Then we can regard that as tourism. Name any 2 examples of fixed cost. So examples can be the rent, administrative cost, insurance, depreciation, salaries, interest on capital, property taxes. So with this given to you now, fixed cost, then you must be able to define fixed costs to say these are costs that do not vary or change with the output. So as in now, it comes with the lower order, but you should be able to develop it further as you define the fixed cost. And you must also be able to answer any critical question in the higher order that can come in for the fixed cost. Give 2 examples of explicit costs for a firm. We talk about the rent, interest, and wages. Give 2 examples of World Heritage Sites in South Africa. There are so many. Let's check. We have Mapungwe, the Fredefort, Dome, Stakeford Caves, Cradle of Humankind, Robben Island, Redfield Cultural and Botanical Landscape, Ismangaliso Wetland Park, the Cape of Fynbos region, Ukatama Drakensberg Park, Komani, Makondo Mountains. So there are so many. You just have to be able to list according to your content. Then we continue in section B, the lower order. Name 2 institutions responsible for regulating competition in South Africa. That's when we talk about the Competition Commission, we talk about the Competition Tribunal, we talk about the Competition Appeals Court. So with this given also, it's a lower order for now. It is very important for you to be able to give the function of each of them. Remember that the Competition Commission does the primary investigation on the alleged misconduct or anti-competitive practice or restricted practice over the business. Then after getting those findings, it will suggest the fine and transfer that information to the Commission Tribunal. The Tribunal will receive that information and do its own findings to see if the firm is guilty of misconduct or not. After doing that investigation, it will decide to accept the fine that was suggested by the Commission or it will do its own. And then the firm will impose a charge or a fine to the business that has been found guilty of misconduct. And then after that, if the firm is not happy with the findings and the penalties imposed on it, it will simply have to appeal to the Commission Appeals Court, and the Appeals Court will do its own investigation on those findings and check if the findings by the Commission Tribunal are accurate or they are correct or not. After that, if ever the firm is found guilty indeed, the charges or the fine will be withheld. But if ever the firm is not found guilty by the Commission Appeals Court, that will mean that charges will be withdrawn by the Commission Appeals Court. Remember, it is very important. Also, you must be able to develop this to the higher order where you check the success and the failure of the Commission Policy Act of South Africa with its 3 bodies on ensuring fair competition within the economy. That's a higher order. So you must always be able to do the lower order, middle order, and higher order for each question that comes in. Mention 2 types of oligopoly. So we have pure oligopoly and we also have a differentiated oligopoly. Remember, pure oligopoly is an oligopoly that sells or produces homogeneous product. And then differentiated oligopoly is the one that produces differentiated products. And then we continue, still on the lower order. Give any 2 examples of consumer inflation. So we count CPI or headline inflation. We have the core inflation. We have administrative inflation. And then still on that, we did not complete in there. We have CPI inflation. We also have CPIX inflation. And then the core inflation, administered inflation. And then we continue. Now, this is the middle order. Before I go to the middle order, I just want to highlight something too. If ever the question says mention any 2 or list any 2, you list the first one, you list the second one. Let's say both of these are wrong, but you listed the third one. What will happen now? The marker will not mark the third one. Will mark only the first 2 answers because you are supposed to provide 2. The third one will not be marked. So ensure that you start with answers that you are sure they are correct, as you mention those answers in the lower order. Ensure that you provide the correct ones first, because if ever you will be providing the correct one at the bottom there as the extra answer, it won't be considered. So always ensure that you start with answers that you are sure they are correct. If you list 2, if they say list any 2, list the 2 that is required. That will help you. If you give an extra, then it won't be considered by the marker. You need to take care of that. So the middle order now. How can environmental subsidies be used to ensure sustainable development in South Africa? So look at this now. We are linking, like I once said before, that you must be able to link them. How can environmental subsidies? So now you should be knowing what is meant by environmental subsidies. Be used to ensure a sustainable development in South Africa. So we want to ensure sustainable development. Remember, environmental subsidies are those subsidies that are given by the government to organizations or individuals that are taking care of the environment or that are using environmental friendly materials or that are using renewable energy. Those organizations receive environmental subsidies from the government. So let's check. Subsidies can be granted to businesses to reduce environmental damage by recycling of boxes, cans, and cardboards. The government can subsidize new technology that saves energy, such as energy-saving light bulbs or solar geysers, air power to reduce air pollution. Promoting environmentally friendly substitutes like unleaded petrol. So if ever the government provides subsidies, those subsidies can help to reduce much of emission within the economy or within the environment. Because now that will mean the business will not be burning the most of fossil fuels within the environment, which will save environment. Why are merit goods normally undersupplied by the market? Remember, merit goods are goods that are beneficial into the society. They only contain positive externalities. We talk about the likes of education, healthcare, and defense force. So you must be able to list it, understand the definition, then you will be able to do what? To give the answer. So why are merit goods undersupplied? We know that they are undersupplied because people are not willing to pay for them. As much as these goods contain positive externalities and are good, they are very much important for social well-being and social welfare, people are not willing to pay for them. The market only produces goods that are profitable. Some goods are highly desirable for the general welfare of the people, but not highly rated by the market. Private costs exceed private benefits. If they had to be paid for, relatively little would be consumed. So the market undersupplies these merit goods because, number one, people are not willing to pay for them. They are very much important for the social welfare and social well-being. So the market underrates them. It doesn't overrate them because people in there need them and they cannot buy them. If ever they had to be supplied by the market, very few people will be paying for them. So that simply means the government should intervene and provide these goods and services. What impact does preservation have on the environment? So now we go straight to environmental sustainability, preservation again. If we preserve, what do we do? Taking care of non-renewable resources so that they can be intact, so that they will live longer even for future generations. So if we preserve resources, what impact will that be having on the environment? Preservation prevents the extinction of plants and animal species. It ensures that non-renewable resources are not lost forever. So if we preserve, we keep the life of animals and plants alive even for future generations. So the benefit we gain from them now can also be gained by the future generation because of preservation. And then we continue with the middle order. Why will the economic profit made by monopolistic competition or competitor disappear in the long run? Now you need to go straight and provoke your mind. The monopolistic competition in there's a free entry for businesses. There are no barriers to entry. So new firms are free to enter the market while existing firms are free to leave the market. So in that case, as the market is more accessible to new firms, that will mean firms can enjoy their supernormal profit or economic profit in the short run. But in the long run, because of the increasing competition rapidly day by day, that will lead to consumers having to speed over the market and demand goods to variety of suppliers. That will lead to existing firms in the long run losing their profits because of the increased competition. Remember, as businesses increase in the market, consumers do not increase, but consumers will be split across those businesses that are coming into the market. So existing firms find themselves losing their consumers to new firms. Because of that, their profits will be reduced to normal profit or even economic loss. So profits attract new businesses easily into the market, making it more competitive. So if ever existing businesses are making much of the profit, that attracts new business to enter and compete in the market. Increased competition will lead to a decrease in prices, which lead to reduce the profit. So because of the competition, prices will drop and the profits enjoyed by businesses that were existing will be reduced. Also, consumers will be all over the market demanding goods from variety of suppliers, meaning firms might end up losing their market share because of high competition. There can be an increase in the number of substitute products produced, which will reduce the demand. So because of substitute goods being made available in the market, that will lead to the demand being reduced from the particular firm or from existing firms. So that will lead to them earning less revenues and less profits in the market in the long run. This will eventually lead to normal profit by the monopolistic competitor in the long run. And then we continue. How can the tourism sector help to reduce poverty among the local people in the community? So now you go straight again to the to the effects of tourism and benefits of tourism. We know that tourism is labor intensive, and tourism provides immediate employment. People get to be employed easily. And also we know that people get an opportunity to start their very own informal businesses in there and sell within the tourism attractions. And that will always lead to poverty being alleviated. So you need to know the content first before you answer these questions. The local unemployed people can earn income by supplying goods and services to tourists. And then local people from partnership with businesses to supply arts and crafts to cure shops to sell to tourists, e.g. the beadwork. So people of the area can simply start their very own initiative by producing craft, also by starting their very own informal business, such as maybe they're selling something as street vendors. That will earn them income so that they will be able to afford some goods and services. We know that tourism also provides immediate employment and is labor intensive, as much as there are a variety of skills required, but people are able to learn while they're working under tourism industry. Why would high inflation lead to retrenchment in the workplace? Now you go straight to the inflation. If ever inflation is very high, we know that it reduces the buying power parity of money. At the same time, what happens with the high inflation? Consumers tend to afford less of goods and services. So with less affordability in terms of goods and services, that will lead to businesses producing less goods. As they produce less goods within their own factories or businesses, that will lead to business demanding less of employees because there is less demand for goods and services. Then some people will be retrenched. Some people will be working for few hours. Let's see. Higher inflation would result to lower production where businesses require less labor. Lower demand for goods and services become a disincentive for businesses to produce more, which decreases the demand for labor. So with more inflation, there is less consumption of goods and services. So the demand for labor will drop because there will be less demand for goods and services, which will lead to less production for goods and services. Then we continue. Why would a lack of information to entrepreneurs lead to market failure? Now we go straight to the reasons for market failure. Lack of information. We know that if ever there is no adequate information available to the producer or entrepreneur, that will lead to the entrepreneur maybe using very much expensive, factors of production. It is very important for the entrepreneur to have, to access information about the prevailing market conditions. So if ever the entrepreneur does not have adequate information, the entrepreneur might end up using the very much expensive factors of production or inputs to produce, which will lead to goods becoming more expensive. But if ever the entrepreneur is having enough information about the prevailing market condition, the entrepreneur will be having more knowledge about where can he or she find factors of production that are more affordable to produce the good quality of goods and services. You'll find the entrepreneur using the capital that is very expensive, while there's a market that's supplying the other capital at the lower cost. So that will always lead to the market failure if ever they don't have adequate information. Let's look at the answer. A lack of information regarding cost and availability of other factors of production will result to misallocation of resources. It will result in inefficiency in production. Why is international tourism important to South African economy? Now you go straight to check. International tourism, what is that? That is the combination of both inbound tourism and outbound tourism. Why is it so important in South African economy? We know that foreign tourists come into the country. As they come in, we earn the foreign currency. As they come into the country, they demand goods and services which lead to more production by firms. And also, some local people get jobs because of foreign tourists that are coming into the country. So it is very important for you to have that knowledge before you approach the answer. It earns the foreign currency for the country, contribute to the gross domestic product of the country, create more jobs in the service sector. We know that tourism employs most of the people, and then some jobs are created in there for people that are unemployed. And then we continue with the middle order. How does the unfair distribution of income result to market failure? If the income is unfairly distributed, what happens? Now you go straight again to the reasons for market failure. In there, we normally say income is unevenly distributed. We know South Africa is one of those countries with the highest level of income inequalities in the world. So what happens in there? More income and wealth is distributed to very few people, and then very few people, very few people, and then less income is given to many people. So that simply means even goods and services, more goods are produced, are produced and given to few people, and less goods are given to many people. That will lead to the market failure, because the goods will only be produced for those who can afford. Those who cannot afford will not access goods. So if income is unfairly distributed, few goods and services are produced for many people, while more goods and services are produced for few people. In the market, goods are produced only for those who can afford, neglecting the needy people who cannot afford. So if the market cannot meet the needs of everyone, it only meets the needs of those people that are rich and those that are having most of money, then the market is failing because it doesn't accommodate all participants in the market. How can the appreciation of the South African rand against US dollar affect international tourism? Now you go straight. You thought you are done with paper one, is back here. We have appreciation of the currency. So if our currency is strong, how does that affect international tourism? So check this. We have the inbound and outbound. If our currency is too strong, that means we can afford the most of the foreign currency, as South African tourists can easily tour to the foreign countries because they can afford the foreign currency very much easily. However, the foreign tourists that are willing to come into South Africa will find it expensive to tour to South Africa, because it will be expensive for them to come here, because as our currency appreciates, their currency will be depreciating to make our currency more expensive for them. Let's look at the response. Strengthening South African rand can make US dollar more affordable to South Africans. Cheap US dollar can result to more South Africans touring to US. There will be a decline in US tourists to South Africa or touring to South Africa because of their depreciated currency. So they will find it expensive to afford our currency. Because of that, there will be less what we call international tourism, or tourists coming from US will decline because of the fact that they will be affording less of our currency while we afford more of their currency. Then we move straight to the data response. Remember, the principle about this one is be very much careful. Whatever thing given to you, it can be a graph, can be the table, can be any form of data response or extract. You must be able to read with understanding, interpret before you approach to answer questions. Be aware also, the first 1 mark answer, it can be 2.1.1, 2.2.1, 2.2.2. Those questions and answers, some answers can be found in the given data response, but going down to 2.2.3 up to 2.2.5, it's highly impossible for you to get the answer in the given data response. So you need to know that, so that to avoid copying the extract that is given to you across the questions, that will make you to forfeit marks. You need to think and contextualize what is given to you. Then this is the data response given to you. So let's read. Sorry, Mr. Edson, Google, Microsoft, and Facebook claim they own the patents. Now it goes straight. Now it talks to the monopoly here. We are talking about the monopoly now here, because if you talk about the patent, you talk about the exclusive rights that are given to the business to become the only supplier of a particular product for the given period of time. So this is known as an artificial monopoly. It's not the natural monopoly. Let's go and see our questions. Identify the type of monopoly depicted in the above cartoon. Artificial or legal or statutory monopoly. What is the nature of product produced or offered by monopolies? We know that they are unique, they don't have any close substitute, and they are also heterogeneous products. And then we continue. Briefly describe the term patent as used in economics. It gives one exclusive or legal right to manufacture a product. So the patent provide a business an exclusive right to be the main producer of a particular product without any competition. How does the slope of the monopolist demand curve differ from that of the monopolistic? You tend to be confused by the monopolist and monopolistic. The monopolist means the monopoly. That's a monopoly business, but monopolistic stands alone is a monopolistic. Now we are talking about the demand curves in the slopes. Let me draw it here. I'll assume this is slope for the monopoly, demand curve for the monopoly, and this one is for the monopolistic. You can see the difference. The demand curve for the monopoly is a little bit steep, indicating that the firm does not have much of the competition. The firm is the only producer of a unique product. It simply means that consumers are not very much sensitive here to the change in price, because as much as the price increase, they still have to demand the product because the product does not have any perfect substitute. So that's why the demand curve is like this. As much as the price increases, there will be a very, very slight reaction of the consumer over the change in price. This was the graph number B. It is for monopolistic competition. Remember, when we talk about the characteristic of the monopolistic competition, we say there is a free entry. Businesses are free to enter and leave the market. So in this case, if ever one business, the business is selling maybe at 20 Rand, consumers are demanding 200 units. If the business decides to increase the price to 50 Rand, consumers will quickly react to that and demand less of that particular product, because within the market, there are some substitute goods for this particular product. There are some markets that are available to provide the same goods or services. So if the price goes to 50 Rand, they only demand 20 units. That simply tells you that consumers tend to be very sensitive to the change in price under the monopolistic, because there is much competition. So let's check the answer now. The slope of the monopolist demand curve is relatively inelastic, steep slope, compared to that of the monopolistic competitor, where it is relatively elastic or less steep. That is caused by the fact that in the monopolistic competition, there is a high competition in the sense businesses are free to enter the market. While in the monopoly, there is no competition. There is only one business that is offering or producing one unique product. We continue with the data response. Why do state-owned monopolies in South Africa find it difficult to make economic profit? Now, you need to check the likes of Eskom, Transnet, and Denel. They are not making economic profit. So let's check. Are they being established to make a profit? Not at all. They are established to make the provision of some public goods and services on behalf of the government. So where do they get funding? They are funded by the government through taxation or from taxpayers' money. So how do they determine prices? They determine prices considering the following: political interest, the social interest, as well as the economic interest or condition. They don't just determine prices to make a profit. They consider all of these three aspects that I've just mentioned. Some of them are selling products below the market price, and some of them are using some user charges mainly to provide the product. So it will always be difficult for them not to make what you call a profit. At the same time, as we continue, there is much of corruption, there is misuse of funds in there. Also, the management, sometimes management is not good enough, is not well experienced, which make it to make improper decisions that will lead to a wastage of resources. And also, rent seeking is also a part of it. So let's see what is provided as the answer. Some state-owned monopolies in South Africa have hisses of corruption and incompetence, which compromises the ability to make a profit. Due to huge maintenance costs, revenue is not sufficient to cover all expenses. Non-payment of debts of municipalities reduces the revenue of state-owned enterprises. We have seen that with Eskom. They've been complaining about debts that South Africans are facing. They are not paying Eskom what is due to it. So it is difficult for you to be regarded as a business to make a profit, because it is owed more than 50 billion rands by South Africans. Why do state-owned monopolies in South Africa find it difficult to make a profit? We continue. Regulation bodies such as NERSA limit high price increase that reduces revenue. So they don't just determine their own prices. NERSA is responsible, especially for Eskom, to approve if the Eskom have to increase the price. So if ever the price should not be increased according to NERSA, that will lead to Eskom having less revenues, and which will reduce their profits. Over-reliance on bailout leads to inefficiencies in management decision-making processes. Some state-owned enterprises provide essential goods and services such as water, which makes it difficult to set a very high price to cover the cost. Remember, the likes of water is very much important for social welfare. If ever water is not provided because people because it's overcharged, that will lead to health of people being in danger. So it is provided at the lowest possible cost in South Africa, which make companies responsible to supply water in South Africa making no profit, because now they take care of social welfare. We continue. Now you're given the graph here: market failure, negative externality. We have the quantity on our horizontal axis and the price on vertical axis. We have the market equilibrium here, and then we have the MPC in here, which is the supply curve, and then there is the area A in there, and then we have MSC, which is S1 in there. So what do we note here? The supply curve is shifting back, it's declining. The demand remains constant. So this is the market failure indicating the negative externality, because now the supply is declining. This might be caused by the fact that the government have intervened by increasing taxation on pollution, or have overtaxed the product that is produced through pollution or air pollution. That have resulted to product becoming more expensive. Then the demand remains high in there. Consumers are demanding more of the product, but the supply is less. So the market cannot afford to supply what is demanded due to the fact that producing the product is much expensive due to the intervention by the government to reduce this kind of pollution. Let's look at the possible questions in there. Give an example of negative externality. Pollution, substance abuse, traffic congestion. Any other correct answer can be marked correctly. So this is 1 mark. Name the shaded area A in the graph above. Welfare loss, deadweight loss, external cost, or negative externality. So any of these will be correct if you provide the answer in there. Briefly describe the term social cost. Social cost is the cost to the society, which include private costs and external cost. Combined cost of goods or services to producers and consumers and the society as a whole. And then we continue in our data response. Explain the lack of information to entrepreneurs as a cause of the market failure. So this question repeats itself. A lack of information on cost, availability, and productivity of factors of production will reduce its effectiveness in production. Incomplete or inaccurate information leads to incorrect decision making about what, for whom, and how to produce. So resources are wasted or are not used accordingly. And then we continue with the data response. Why is is incomplete information a major concern in the market? So if ever there's not enough information within the market, why does that become a major concern? Principal agent information occurs when one party has more information than other party in the market. And these result to price discrimination. Remember what is meant by the price discrimination. Price discrimination means, or it occurs when one firm sells the particular product to different consumers at different prices. One will be charged a higher price for the same quantity and same quality. One will be charged the lower price. So if ever there is not enough information, that will lead to some producers selling the product in different prices because they know that consumers are not having adequate information about the prevailing market conditions. Asymmetric information has an effect of both allocative inefficiency and productive inefficiency in the market. If ever we don't have similar information, one have less, one have more information, then that will always lead to inefficiencies in the market, namely allocative and productive inefficiency. Consumers, producers, and workers make uninformed decisions when they don't have complete information about the prevailing market conditions. And then we continue. Another data response. So here we are given the market failure. The government intervenes. We demand a living wage. So there's a data response here given or extract to be read from January 2019. There are many causes of market failure, such as externalities, merit goods, and unequal income distribution. In January 2019, government intervened to address unequal income distribution and announced a national minimum wage. This announcement was supported by COSATU and the Federation of Unions of South Africa. So this extract is more about the minimum wage. Now, before you go and look at the questions, you need to understand what is meant by minimum wage. What is the effect of minimum wage? So we know that minimum wage is the lowest income businesses are forced to pay to its employees. No employee should be paid below that particular rate or income. That's a minimum wage. Now, let's see and look at questions. We know the effects of minimum wage. It results to workers willing to work, and they supply most of their factors of production into the market so that they can be employed. But then businesses employ less workers because it becomes expensive for them to employ workers until the government intervene with the employment subsidies to support business to employ high capacity of workers and pay them that high wage level. Let's look at the question. Name one type of inefficiency that results from market failure: productive or technical inefficiency, as well as allocative inefficiency. Give one redress policy that government uses to redistribute income. That's a BE or triple BE or affirmative action. Land restitution, land redistribution, the minimum wage law. We continue. Briefly describe the term merit goods. Goods that are beneficial to the society as a whole, where every individual should consume them irrespective of their income. Those are merit goods. Why does the negative externality result to overproduction of goods and services? The external third-party cost is not included in the market price, thus lowering the cost, which allows producers to produce more than they should produce. And then we continue. Explain the negative effect or consequence of minimum wage in the economy. So now we only look at the negative. Remember, there are some positive effects. If ever there's a minimum wage, that will mean there will be improved standard of living. People will be able to escape poverty. And then the gap between rich and the poor will be reduced. But then let's look at the negative effect. If ever minimum wage have been legislated in South Africa, that will lead to business employing less workers. So there will be more supply of labor, but there will be less demand for labor. There will be most of retrenchment. People will be losing income because of the minimum wage. Minimum wage will result in an increase in unemployment due to reduced demand for labor. Firms will be demanding less workers because it will be expensive for them to employ workers. Since wages form a large part of the cost of production, output and competitiveness is compromised. Government's tax revenue is reduced through lower employment, which increases the social welfare burden of the government. Due to lower employment, production will decrease, which can lead to inflation because there will be less production maybe while the demand is still high. And then people might find themselves living within the poverty. Then we are given here the general response again under inflation. So we are moving straight to inflation here under economic issues. Headline inflation percentage change over four quarters, adapted from State SA and South African Reserve Bank 2019. So now let's look at this. Inflation rate. You just have to look at this one. The inflation rate here and here. Remember, our inflation target is between 3 to 6%. Anything above 6% means the inflation has gone beyond its own target. And also, you must know the meaning of headline inflation. Remember, headline inflation or CPI inflation, this is the inflation that has not been adjusted. Then let's see and look at possible questions in here. What do the two dotted lines in the graph refers to? It refers to the inflation target of between 3 to 6%. During which year would the Monetary Policy Committee more likely to increase the repurchase rate in the repo rate? That was 2016, where the inflation was beyond its own target. Briefly describe the term headline inflation. The inflation rate that represents the cost of basket of goods of an average South African household, which is measured by the consumer price index, unadjusted inflation. So it has not been adjusted. It is having the effect of interest rate or mortgage bond. And then we continue with the same data response. Explain the influence of inflated expectations on consumer expenditure. We know that if ever we know as consumers that there will be inflation in a few months, what do? We don't save money now. What do? Instead, we spend money, we buy most of goods and services now to avoid spending our money when it have lost its buying power parity. So let's see. Under inflationary conditions, consumers expect prices to rise further and they start to buy more goods, e.g. petrol prices. If ever the petrol price will be increasing, consumers will buy petrol now to ensure that they don't spend their money on petrol while it can afford less of liters. Labor unions wish to protect their members' income against the erosion of purchasing power caused by inflation. We'll continue. How would an increase in value-added tax impact on the economy? If value-added tax increase, an increase in value-added tax could lead to the following: ensure increased government revenue, which would allow government to provide more social services to benefit the community. So if ever value-added tax has been increased, there will be more revenues earned by the government. Lead to decrease in government revenue due to consumers reducing their spending. So since goods become more expensive, there will be less demand for some of goods and services, which will be reducing government tax revenues. Influence production or supply negatively due to a decrease in demand for goods and services. So because VAT will always increase selling prices, there will be lower demand for goods and services, which will always affect the production negatively. Consumers will not be demanding much of goods and services because they become more expensive. Impact the lower income group more adversely due to the fact that the regressive nature of taxation. So If ever the taxation has been increased, that will lead to people living under severe poverty because they cannot even afford their basic needs. Impact negative on level of aggregate demand due to increased prices that might lead to more even unemployment within the economy. Stabilize the inflation rate due to lower demand for goods and services. So the demand pull inflation can be stabilized because consumers will be demanding less goods and services, which means the demand might find itself being equal to the supply for goods and services. And then we continue. We are given here the data response. This is the key into demand curve under the oligopoly. So you can see this is the collusive price, the bottom segment, and then the top segment. Relatively inelastic, relatively elastic. And then we check, there is always total revenue to be calculated here. We have on the first price, we have 45 rand, quantity is 400 units. And then on the collusive price, we have 40 rand at E, quantity is 700 units. And then as the price decreases, remember, if ever the firm decreases the price under oligopoly, other firms copy the strategy because they avoid losing their market share. So firms end up choosing not to compete over the price because they avoid the price war. So the price is 28 rand and then the quantity supply is 800 rand. And then let's look at questions. Identify the inelastic segment of the demand curve. That is ED1. That is inelastic demand curve, ED1, the bottom segment. And then name the demand curve depicted above. That is a key in the demand curve for the oligopoly. Briefly describe the term tacit collusion. So the behavior by firms is motivated by an arrangement that is not formal. Unspoken actions between oligopoly firms that are liked to minimize competition. And then when the dominant firm increases its price and hope that its rivals will see it as a market signal and increase their prices. So the tacit collusion is also known as an implicit collusion or hidden collusion. That's when the firms do not sit down and discuss or make the agreement. That is under the price leadership process, where the price leader or the dominant firm decide on the price and other firms simply copy the strategy without any formal agreement. And then how does the profit of an oligopoly differ from the profit of monopolistic competitor in the long run? We know that oligopolies charge highly excessive prices so that they keep their total revenues high. So that lead to them making economic profits in the long run than monopolistic businesses that are making normal profits in the long run. The oligopoly will make economic profit over the long run compared to the monopolistic competitor making a normal profit. So that is done by the fact that under monopolistic competition is too high, and then under what we call the oligopoly, there is a competition. However, businesses in there have this strategy of interdependence, which lead to them keeping their prices very high so that they keep their total revenues very, very high. Why will the producer be reluctant to decrease his or her price from 40 rand to 28 rand? Show all calculations. In this case, you have to calculate total revenues and compare. So let's see. The producer's revenue will decrease. At a price of 40 rand, the producer will earn 28,000 revenues when we say 40 times 700. As compared to an income of 22,400, when we say 28 rand multiplied by 800, the firm will be earning 22,400. At the 40 rand, the revenue would be 28,000 compared to 22,400 at the price of 28 rand. Therefore, producer's revenue will decrease. So the producer will be reluctant to lower its price to 28 rand because it will be losing its revenues. They always ensure that they sell their product at the price that will give them more or highest revenues. And then we continue. We are here under environmental sustainability now. We are talking about the chemical waste in there. We're talking about the hazardous waste. You are just the same. You people are dirty and very irresponsible. Look at all the destruction you have caused. You have killed the plant and animal life. You are only interested in profit. This is talking to markets. Now, remember, we've been saying that under environmental sustainability, the market is a problem. The market see nature as a common resource to make a profit. It is always difficult for the market to under-consume natural resources. It overuse them for the sake of the profit. So this talks to the market. So in this case, we are talking about also the loss of biodiversity, whereby the plants and animals are dying due to the fact that the market is rushing profit. Let's look at questions. Identify one environmental problem in the cartoon. Hazardous waste, the chemical waste. Identify the phrase from the cartoon that relates to the loss of biodiversity. You have killed the plant and animal life. That's a phrase. Briefly describe the term pollution. Introduction of waste or toxic waste or substances into the environment. And then we continue with the same data response. Explain a measure adopted by the international community to deal with loss of biodiversity. Cite bans commercial international trade in endangered species of plant and animals. Why is hazardous waste and chemical waste regarded as harmful to the environment? They kill living organisms, therefore causing an imbalance in the ecosystem. They cause infertility in people, animals, and plants. And then we continue. The other data response. The weak rand can benefit South Africa's tourism. This is what we were talking about back then when we were talking about international tourism with our appreciated currency. So let's see, South Africa's currency has reached its lowest level since 2001, meaning it has depreciated. This is great news for the international tourists. So foreign tourists will be encouraged to tour, who can take advantage over the very favorable exchange rate to visit South Africa. Now, more than ever, South Africa offers the great value of money and has become one of the greatest holiday destinations internationally for travel. South Africa offers vacation options to suit every pocket and taste. Travelers are truly spoiled for choice from hotel and safari lodge, accommodation, restaurants offering local and international cuisine, access to the Big Five wildlife, and spectacular breathtaking the scenery. So now this simply tells us about accommodation or attractions we have, even infrastructure we have in South Africa. And it also talks about the fact that our currency is weak and international tourism is increasing. Foreign tourists are taking advantage of coming and tour into the country. Let's look at the given questions and see the answers. Identify one good or service on which tourists can spend money in South Africa in the extract above. Hotel and lodge accommodation, restaurant services, Big Five viewing. What is the name of currency used in South Africa? That's a rand. You need to remember that. Briefly describe the concept ecotourism. So ecotourism occurs when tourists visit the place or area to observe the beauty of nature. So it is more embedded on nature. And then we continue. How does weak rand or weak South African rand affect the South African tourist? So outbound tourism will be more expensive, which will decrease the outflow of domestic tourists. If our rand is very weak, we find foreign currencies being much expensive, so we cannot easily tour to foreign countries. While weak South African rand is detrimental to outbound tourism, this will therefore increase domestic tourism. If ever people cannot find it cheap to tour abroad, they will tour within the country, which will lead to internal and domestic tourism. How can an increase in tourism negatively affect the environment? We know that if ever tourism is increasing, people find themselves visiting one area in a short space of time, which will lead to congestion. It can also result to environment being very much under stress. In this case, we are talking about environmental effect of tourism. The increase in tourism or tourists in one place increase environmental stress. Tourism activities have negative effect on the environment if tourists leave their carbon footprint. Increase in tourism result to high prices for local people. We know that local people find themselves having to pay more money for goods and services locally due to the fact that the area is a hotspot for tourism. So businesses find themselves having to benefit the most by increasing their prices, which also affect the local people. We've explained the reason for cost benefit analysis. That is 8 mark now. Why do we do CBA? So it is done for the following reason. In public sector projects, there are no market signals to guide decision making, e.g. roads and bridges. To identify all relevant benefits and cost of a project before an informed decision is made. To ensure economic efficiency in resource allocation. To include a wider social impact and include externalities in decision-making process to estimate the effect of the investment on social welfare and the environment. To bring greater objectivity to decision-making to avoid subjectivity. So the CBA is mainly done to ensure that decision makers are well informed. They don't make decisions or they don't grant a permission to the project while the project is not economically worthwhile. They need to grant a permission to the project if ever it is economically worthwhile. They cannot grant the permission to the project if ever social costs are more than social benefits. So it is very important for the country to do CBA for any big project before it is conducted, because there are some negative effects and positive effects that should be considered. We continue. And then there's a general response in the fuel hike to keep into consumer inflation. Now we are still on the inflation. The general response rate as follows. Fuel hikes will most certainly impact consumer inflation. According to economists, high fuel price can also affect inflation indirectly through second-round impacts. If firms spend more on transporting their goods, they can upwardly adjust the final price of goods and pass on the additional price pressure to the consumer. We know that as the fuel price increases, that will lead to distribution process being very much expensive for businesses, and they will always ensure that they offset the cost of transport or distribution to the consumer. That as the end user, consumer will end up paying more for a particular product. So let's look at questions in there. Identify the type of inflation associated with the increase in fuel price in the above extract. That's a cost push inflation or supply inflation. Name one way in which inflation is measured. Inflation is measured through the CPI or PPI, the weighting, as well as inflation rate, or also indexes in the app. Briefly describe the term core inflation. So core inflation excludes the item from CPI basket that have highly volatile prices and items with the prices that are affected by the government intervention. Remember, highly volatile prices are prices that can increase or decrease at the short period of time. So those prices will always lead to uncertainty. They can increase and decrease in the short space of time, so that the part of they are excluded from the core inflation. And also prices that are having the government intervention are not the part of the core inflation. Remember that core inflation is the part of the consumer inflation. Why should the wage rate be determined at the same or higher rate than the average consumer price index? Workers must enjoy a better or the same standard of living. It should not decline or decrease. Workers should be able to afford basic goods and services. They should have enough money to satisfy their basic wants. Cautions the effect of inflation, which could reduce disposable income. The real wage increase to keep the track with the cost of living increase. And then we continue. How can the government use fiscal policy to combat inflation? Remember the fiscal policy in there, we talk about the likes of government spending and taxation. Increase in the direct tax to decrease the disposable income for consumers. Increase in the indirect tax to reduce credit expenditure. So if ever indirect tax have been increased, what will happen? That will lead to spending becoming, that will lead to prices becoming even higher. And then let's continue. Reduction in the government expenditure, such as postponement of or even cancelling expensive infrastructure projects. Reduce government debts used to finance government spending. Reduce government spending on wages and salaries, annual increase. And then we are given inflation in there. This is the higher order question. Higher order, 8 marks. You have to be able to calculate the inflation rate given the CPI in there for the different years. So we have consumer price index for 2020 and also consumer price index for 2021. Then this is the inflation rate. For 2020, it was 154. And then for 2021, it was 166. So there's an upward trend of the CPI, meaning prices have increased. Study the above table and calculate inflation rate. Advise the governor of South African Reserve Bank on how monetary policy committee can use repo rate based on the prevailing economic conditions. 8 marks. Let's see now. Inflation rate to calculate. The CPI for 2021 minus CPI for 2020 divided by the CPI for 2020 multiplied by 100. That's a formula. Now, let's see. 166 minus 154 divided by 154 times 100. That gives us 7.79. So you get 4 marks for calculating inflation correctly. Now, after that, you need to advise the governor of the Reserve Bank on how, on what should be done to ensure that the inflation is reduced from this condition of 7.79%. Remember, our inflation target is between 3 to 6%. South African inflation target is between 3 to 6%. So this becomes a problem for the nation. The governor of South African Reserve Bank with the MPC must intervene by increasing repo rate or repurchase rate to decrease the money supply in the circulation. High repo rate results to the credit becoming more expensive. This decreases the credit availability within the economy. Less borrowing results to less money supply, which results to the decrease in aggregate demand for goods and services. Less demand relieve pressure on supply and push prices down. So inflation will be combated. So it is very important for you to know this higher order question, that if ever you are given a chance to calculate inflation and give an advice to the governor, You must be able to do that, but then your inflation rate must be correct, because if it's wrong, maybe it's below 7, it's below 6%, you will be giving the wrong answer in there. Ensure that you are able to calculate and advise where possible. 8 marks, differentiate between conservation and preservation. We are under environmental sustainability now. Conservation. The conservation deals with sustainable use of and management of natural resources to ensure that they are available even for future generation. Conservation aims at to create continuity of the environment while ensuring that change is sympathetic to the quality of life. Human activities affect the environment not only because they cause pollution, but also because they tend to overutilize it. And then we are about now the preservation, where we take care of non-renewable resources. Preservation concerns elements of the environment that are threatened with extinction, that can be depleted and not be recovered. Those are non-renewable resources. Preservation aims to protect and maintain these elements in their present value so they remain intact. The weaknesses in the market solution require government to intervene to preserve environment assets through buying or expropriating, subsidizing, and control. Help to preserve biodiversity within the environment. And then use the graph of the total cost and total revenue TR to explain profit maximization in a perfect market. So this is the graph. It was mainly for how many marks? I think it was for 4 marks, the graph. Then there should be explanation. We have our total revenue here and total cost. And then the point A and point B means total revenues are equal to the total cost. So there is a normal profit in there. And then the profit is maximized when total cost is further away from the total revenue. Be able to draw this graph is one of those graphs that are not much familiar in the examination. So you must expect any graph to flow into the examination tomorrow, and you must be able to answer those questions. The firm will make a profit between point A and point B, TR and TC, where the total revenue exceeds total cost. Profit is maximized when the gap between TR and TC is the greatest. This occurs at 4 units of the production and at the cost of 40. There is the point. And then break even point will occur at point A and point B. So this is point A and point B, where TR is equal to TC. So that's the break even point on normal profit. And then we continue with the higher order. Critically discuss the challenges countries face in reducing the production of hazardous waste. Producing goods in modern economies which automatically lead to chemical waste as byproduct. This will mean that hazardous waste could only be produced if production decreases. Will only be reduced if production decreases, which would contribute to more unemployment. So it is difficult to reduce the hazardous waste because as it's being reduced, that will lead to high level of unemployment, for which it's a bad thing for the society and for the economy. Exporting hazardous waste to developing countries at a price. This gives them an opportunity to get rid of excess waste, because many African countries like Ivory Coast allow this activity as it is a source of income for them. So they allow foreign countries or developed countries to waste to them their what you call the hazardous waste and get income for it. And then we continue with the same question. Increasing economic activities such as manufacturing and agricultural production that exceed the measures used by the government to restrict or dispose of hazardous waste. Generating hazardous waste is also found in households, although on a much smaller scale, such as leftover plates. And then we continue with the higher order question. Critical discuss challenges countries faces. Then we continue again. The big challenge remains to change the mindset of people by educating households to reduce the usage of product that is regarded as hazardous waste, like e-waste, where computers are sold to developing countries that should have been hazardous waste in the country of origin. And then how will the consumer price index influence the economy? So the change in CPI. Inflation influences the economy by distorting prices, meaning prices become more higher, and it is no longer a correct indicator of the value of goods and services. So with the inflation, price become more distorted because they don't reflect the actual selling price, but they are inflated. Supply principle Supply useful indicators to the price movements, which might channel investment on a certain direction. Compare price indexes on the different months. That helps to assess the state of the economy. Trade unions negotiate wage increases that are not in line with the increase in productivity of workers. And then we continue. A South African Reserve Bank uses CPI to apply suitable monetary policy option that will help to pursue inflation target of between 3 to 6%. The selection of goods or services in the calculation of the CPI does not always represent the average household and might influence each household differently, because not everyone in there is included. Evaluate the success of Commission Policy Act of South Africa in achieving its objectives. So we check the success part. Provides consumers with competitive prices and variety of products or choices, e.g. MTN and Vodacom are the part of the competition in the under network providers. And then DStv has been found guilty of price fixing and fined 180 million by the Commission. Tiger Brands was fined about 8 million for collusion in the mining industry. South African banks face market fines for price fixing and collusion. Fruit and vegetable producer fined for price fixing and collusion. And then we continue. Encourage South Africans to participate in the world market and accept foreign competition. Enable SMMEs to participate in the economy. Enable previously disadvantaged people or groups to increase their ownership in the business sector. And then what about the negative side? Okay, we continue with the positive. Various anti-competitive practices have been investigated with the positive outcome. Currently, a number of big insurance companies in South Africa are under investigation over being alleged of fixing their premiums. And then let's look at the negative part. The failure now. Fines imposed on firms that have been found guilty were too lenient. It has failed to protect consumers over aggressive prices. Prices have been detrimental to the economic growth and development over the past 2 years. State-owned monopolies remain as the main supplier of some products, such as electricity, which has contributed to high level of productive and allocative inefficiency within the economy. And then we continue. Evaluate the growth of tourism industry in South Africa. Workers are experiencing an increase in disposable income. Workers experience the reduction in working hours, more public holidays. There is a greater awareness of recreation time by South Africans. Well-improved transport, roads, communication, and accommodation facilities. There is an increase in advertising and promotion available, including marketing. South Africa, has a lot to offer in the sphere of wildlife, nature, and is an economical destination for foreigners. This is section C that we have been waiting for. So in this case, we'll provide 2 examples of essays in details, and then I'll go through the rest of essays for you to be able to upload the question paper tomorrow, because none of us knows the essay that will be in the examination. But one thing for sure, these 6 essays that are here, one of them will appear in the examination. You need to ensure that if you are strong in microeconomics, you do all of them and you get ready for the examination. If you are strong in economic issues, you do all of the essays for economic issues. Microeconomics, question 5, we are providing 1 example to you. You must know them all, like we said before. So the first one, discuss in detail various equilibrium positions with the age of graphs under the perfect market. So this essay is one of those important essays. In this case, you must be able to do what? You have your introduction, obviously, where you define the perfect market. And then if you talk about economic profit or supernormal profit, you need to provide conditions for the profit before you draw the graph. So you tell the marker or the examiner that economic profit occurs when the business generates more revenues than its cost. So when total revenues exceed total cost, we come across the economic profit. When average revenues exceed average cost, that will lead to the economic profit. So for us to see or notice economic profit, average revenue should be higher than the average cost, or meaning average cost curve should be turning below or lower than at the bottom or below average revenue curve. In that case, you draw the graph, you provide the heading for the graph, you draw your graph, you indicate the graph will be shown in here. You go to the normal profit, you do the same. You go to the economic loss, you do the same. All you have to note in here, you must ensure that your average cost is turning in the right position. Remember, for the economic loss, your average cost should tend above average revenue. It should be more than average revenue. Average cost curve should be above. And then also note that during the normal profit or break even, your average cost should be turning along the average revenue curve. If it's economic loss, economic profit, your average cost curve should be turning below or a little bit at the bottom than what you call the average revenue curve. So note that. Discuss the monopoly in detail with or without graphs. It is very important for you to know all characteristics of the monopoly. Remember, the monopoly is there is only one seller in there that is supplying unique product. Products are unique or heterogeneous. And then there are high barriers to entry in there. There's only one supplier. Also, we don't have any perfect substitute in there. The product is the only product without any substitute within the market. So know those characteristics in there in details so that you will be able to answer the question if ever the monopoly essay comes in. Also, be able to draw graphs, the one for economic loss, the profit, and the normal profit. Be able to draw those graphs so that you will be free as you go to the examination. Examine the oligopoly in detail. So you should know the characteristics of the oligopoly, know the behavior of oligopoly in details in there, but also must be able to do what? To draw the king, the demand curve, and explain in there. So we have that example of the essay in this presentation. Compare and contrast any two types of market structures, perfect to the imperfect market or imperfect to imperfect in detail. So I will provide the table for the market structure just to show you how you should be answering if ever you have to compare and contrast market structures in here, maybe perfect to imperfect or imperfect to imperfect in detail. It becomes a very easy essay in there. Discuss in detail how the following factors, reasons for market failure, lead to misallocation of resources. Remember reasons for market failure in there. We talk about missing markets. We talk about lack of information. We talk about imperfect market structure. We talk about externalities. So we talk about imperfect distribution of income and wealth. So in that case, we talk about also immobility of factors of production. You need to know the content to be provided on each subheading in there. Remember, if we talk about the missing market, we simply say the market is totally incomplete without the provision of public goods. So you get in there, you talk about the public goods, to separate them into two. We have the community goods and collective goods. We remember that community goods are goods that are provided for free or free of charge. They are known as free riders. They are characterized as non-excludable, indivisible. Also, they are just available to everyone for free without having to pay anything for them. We talk about the likes of street lights and traffic lights. And then we have community goods. Those are goods that are provided by the government, but they are not free, they are not for free. User charges are imposed on them to make them not to be free of charge or make them not to be free riders. So these user charges are imposed by the government for the maintenance of those goods or services. We talk about the likes of city parks. Some of them are paid for. We don't just go in for free. We talk about toll roads. We pay for toll roads. As we travel via the road that is having some toll gates, we pay there. So people that are using those goods are the ones that are willing to pay for them. And then we continue. We talk about immobility of factors of production. We simply say factors of production are not easily flexible from one place to another. It takes time for the labor to move from one place to another. We talk about the capital. Capital is not transferable or infrastructure transferable from one place to another. You find that the firm is having a business, have a big offices in Gauteng, but it has to relocate to Mpumalanga. It will be difficult for the firm to mobilize its offices, but when they get to Mpumalanga, they must build new offices that lead to inefficiency also in that case. If we talk about lack of information, if there is not enough information within the market, that will always lead to what? It will always lead to businesses or entrepreneurs, consumers, and employees not making good or rightful decisions because they don't have adequate information about prevailing market conditions. There will be there will be asymmetric information whereby one party is having more information than another party. That will lead to the price discrimination. Remember that consumers need to have enough information about the prevailing market conditions so that they will be buying the product where maybe they can afford it at the less price. Also, producers have to have adequate information about the prevailing market conditions so that they will be able to get input at the lower cost than getting input at the higher cost where the market is providing them at the higher cost. And then workers or employees should have adequate information about job opportunities that are available and also the risk of the job that they take so that they will be able to make a better decision or informed decisions. And then we also talk about unfair distribution of income and wealth. If ever income is unfairly distributed, that will lead to some goods produced for specific people in the economy that can afford, and people that cannot afford will be neglected. That will lead to goods mainly provided for those who can afford, and those that cannot afford those goods while they need them. So that leads to the market failure. And then still on, I spoke about what we call the public goods, and then we also talk about the merit goods and demerit goods. Don't forget that. And then as we go on, the other is a discuss in detail how the following factors will lead to, okay, I've discussed that one. And then discuss in detail state intervening as a consequence of market failure. When the government intervened to correct the issue of market failure, what happened? That's when the government intervened through regulations, ensuring that it set some regulations based on lack of information. The government ensures that business provide information or on their web or on the packaging of the product about the prevailing, about the dosage and the makeup of the product. Also ensure that barriers to entry are really not, are not made practical. They are not in the market. Firms can be free to enter and compete in the market under the imperfect competition. And then also, we go further to talk about the likes of subsidies. We talk about price floors, price ceilings. We talk about the likes of redistribution of income and wealth. So that is it can be a part of graphs or not graphs. Also, we talk about externalities and also inefficiencies. And then these were the essays for the micro. Ensure that you are able to do all of these essays if you want to answer question 5 tomorrow. And then economic issues. One example will be provided to you. Discussing detailed consequences of inflation. This is one of those essays. So you must be able to discuss the effect of inflation. You might be provided some concept to take care of, maybe to debtors and creditors, to taxpayers, psychological effect, to poverty, to employment, etc. You must be able to discuss the effect of inflation in details. Okay, let's bring it back. Discussing detailed measures to combat inflation. You must be able to discuss measures to combat inflation for both demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Remember, we can combat the demand pull inflation using the monetary policy and fiscal policy. How in the monetary policy? There should be contractionary monetary policy that is aiming at decreasing the money supply in the economy. That will mean interest rate must be increased, and then cash reserve must be increased. The Reserve Bank should sell open market transaction to the commercial banks, and then moral persuasion should be tightened so that there will be less demand for goods and services. That will lead to inflation being slightly reduced within the economy. And then the fiscal policy, that's why we talk about decreasing government spending and increasing taxation so that there will be less money available in the economy and less demand for goods and services. We also have some other measures. In there, we talk about increasing productivity, ensuring that supply side policies are very much influenced positive so that business can supply more goods and services. We talk about also reducing company tax so that business can find it cheap to produce, reducing interest rates so that businesses, they can get capital at the lower interest rate and produce more goods and services. Take care of that as measures to combat inflation. Examine in detail effects of tourism. You need to know effects of tourism, environmental effects. We talk about environmental effects. We talk about on the employment, on the GDP of the country, etc. It is very important that you know how tourism affects those components. This is one of the easy essays that you can come across in the examination. Examine in detail benefits of tourism. How does the tourism benefit relevant stakeholders in the economy? You must be able to discuss them in detail. And then we continue to environmental sustainability. Discuss in detail how the government can ensure sustainable development. In there, you talk about the government intervention through property rights, marketable permits, marketable permits, command and control policies, the government departments, education, recycling, environmental taxes, environmental subsidies, etc. You need to be able to discuss all of those things or those aspects if ever the essay comes in. If it doesn't come in, you will come across that content in your section B. Discuss in detail the following problems in the international measures taken to ensure sustainable development. That's why we talk about the likes of the loss of biodiversity, the chemical waste, hazardous waste, loss of indigenous knowledge, as well as the climate change. You must be able to discuss that in detail in case you come across that particular essay in the examination. So as we provide them all, we are not sure which essay will come here, but one thing for sure, there will be one essay from the list from economic issues and one essay from what you call from microeconomics. Question 5 and question 6 will be catered for. This is the structure, market structures. If ever you are given a privilege to discuss, compare and contrast market structures, this is the information that should make it easy for you. Let's say maybe they say compare and contrast the perfect market to the monopoly. Now, you are given this subheading. Number of sellers. We know in the perfect market, there are many buyers and sellers that exist. That is due to the fact that there are no restrictions or barriers to end that prevent the entry of new businesses. The market end is completely free or accessible. And then in the monopoly, there's one seller. Entry of new firms is restricted. So that's a market structure. You continue nature of products. The perfect market produces homogeneous products. These are products that are similar and they are perfect substitute for each other. They are also known as identical. And then look at the monopoly. Monopoly produces unique or heterogeneous products. These are goods that are not having any perfect or close substitute. That's the market structure. Be able to discuss. If ever you compare between perfect and monopoly, you provide the subheading, number of sellers. You answer for perfect, you answer for the monopoly. That will give you more marks. Price determination. We know that under perfect market, the price is determined by the market forces, demand and supply. The firm does not have any influence over the price. The firm is regarded as a price taker. Under the monopoly, the price is determined by the firm itself. The firm is therefore regarded as a price setter. Individual firm demand curve. The demand curve for the perfect market is horizontal or perfectly elastic. That is due to the fact that the firm is a price taker, does not have any influence over the price. While under the monopoly, the demand curve is downward sloping and also relatively inelastic. That is due to the fact that the firm is the price taker, the price setter. It always increases the price to reduce the output and decrease the price to increase the output. And then you can go further, but it is very important for you to follow the structure I've just given to you. If ever they say compare and contrast. This can be the very easy essay coming into the examination, and ensure that you can compare and contrast all of these markets, perfect to imperfect, imperfect to imperfect. If the essay comes in, you will thank me. This is the what we call the table provided to you. Take care of it. If ever the market structure comes in, you simply nail it down. Then let's continue. Essay example: discuss oligopoly in detail with regard to concept, behavior, and demand curve. Additional part: why has Eskom as monopoly not achieved economic profit in the long run, although this is expected of a monopoly? 10 marks. Then let's go in. I will simply show you example. I won't be dwelling much on the essay. So it's under oligopoly. Therefore, that means we define oligopoly. Oligopoly is an imperfect market structure that exists when there are few large firms and many buyers. And then we continue with the body of the essay, and under the main part, small number of large firms dominate the market. Oligopoly firms are able to influence the supply of the product or service to a market. By controlling the supply of the product or service on the market, oligopolies aim to keep prices very, very high so that they have their high profits. If the market is dominated by two firms, it is regarded as a duopoly. And then we continue. We have two types of oligopoly: pure oligopoly, which is oligopoly that produces or supplies homogeneous products. And then we have also differentiated oligopoly, which is all about oligopoly that produce differentiated products. And then we continue. Mutual dependence. We know that under oligopoly, there's a high level of interdependence. Firms are very much dependent to one another. They watch each other very close on decision making, because if one firm make a profitable decision, other firms might end up, might decide to take that decision also to avoid losing their profits and market share. Each seller is influenced by the actions of another seller. Decisions of one seller will influence the decision to be taken by another seller or competitor. The decision regarding the price, quantities, and marketing depends on what it thinks the other oligopolies in the market is going to do in response to his actions. Competitors may react in many ways to price reduction by the competitor. There is no single way they can react. So there are different ways that they can use to react if ever the price is declining or has been reduced by one firm. Mutual dependence. Firm considers the action and the reaction of the rivals while determining the price and output level. A change in output or price by one firm evokes reaction of other firms operating in the same market. It is therefore impossible to formulate a single theory for price and production decisions under oligopoly. The general behavior of oligopoly is not easily predictable. And then we continue. Under oligopoly, control over the price. Each oligopoly firm has a considerable control over the price, especially when they are involved in joint decision making. This will result to abnormally high prices and profits. Oligopolies are characterized by price rigidity because if one firm decreases his or her price, competitors will also decrease their price to avoid losing their market shares, which create the bottom segment of the demand curve. A price decrease by one firm can initiate the price war, which results to firms avoiding competing over the price. Prices are determined through price leadership process, which occurs when dominant firms determine the price on behalf of other firms. So you need to keep this in mind. Not only dominant firm can determine the price, also the firm that is very good on understanding market signals can also be the price leader in the market, even though it's not a dominant firm. Remember, dominant firm is the firm that is having about 32% market share and above within the entire market. And then we continue. Collusion. Collusion is very common amongst oligopolies. It occurs when suppliers within the same market manipulate the price and quantities that they sell in order to maximize their profits. So collusion can occur in two ways, implicitly and explicitly. Collusive behavior reduces market competition and increases inefficiency. It occurs in two ways, namely implicit and explicit, where stealing or copying competitors' ideas is referred as an implicit or hidden or tacit collusion. Formal agreements on price or production techniques or arrangements is referred as explicit or an overt collusion. That's where firms sit down and discuss and make an agreement over the decision. And then we continue. Keying the demand curve. Oligopoly is faced by the keying the demand curve, which is having two segments, namely the top segment and bottom segment. The top segment is relatively elastic and the bottom one is relatively inelastic. Keying demand curve is demand curve with two segments. The top segment is relatively elastic, which indicates that consumers are very quick to react if ever there's a price increase. And then the bottom segment indicates relatively inelastic demand curve, which indicates that consumers are not sensitive to the decrease in price if producers will be reacting in the same way. If one firm decreases the price, the competitors copy the same price. That will lead to the firm that initiated the move losing any expected profit at the same time. Consumers find no incentive to leave their suppliers for another competitor if ever they are selling at the similar price. And then we continue. Non-price competition. So we know that oligopolies normally compete over the non-price competition strategies. They avoid losing the price because it initiates the price war. Oligopolies do not compete over the price to avoid the price war. Their competition is based on non-price competition strategies in order to increase their sales. Advertising and marketing, product branding, after-sales services are some of the strategies used to increase their sales. And then additional part, why has Eskom as a monopoly not achieved economic profit in the long run, although this is expected of a monopoly? Eskom is unable to service its debt from its earnings, forcing it to borrow more or get government bailout. Corruption, e.g. irregular tenders to suppliers by taking bribes in the provision of substandard code. Lack of proper leadership and corporate governance. Expanded electrification program was not accompanied by infrastructure development, e.g. building of new power stations. Lack of maintenance of current infrastructure, e.g. breakdown of machinery, is costly when it is not repaired on time. And then cable theft, Eskom had to replace cables at the high cost. Eskom is in debt, reliant liquidity situation, employee benefit cost increasing, and the continuing new build program. New power stations are not fully functional and are costing a lot more than originally budgeted for, e.g. Modupi and Kusile power stations. Load shedding is implemented because of financial strain, resulting in the inability to service that, e.g. cannot pay suppliers of a coal. Load shedding reduces the revenue collection when electricity is off. Culture of non-payment in electricity, in certain areas, lead to loss of revenues. Illegal connections lead to insufficient revenue collection. Conclusion: the market interdependence in oligopoly results to consumer exploitation, since the price fixing forces prices up at the expense of consumers. Profits of natural monopolies are not guaranteed, since these state-owned enterprises are less reliant on profit as they produce public goods and services. And then the last is say examining detailed benefits of tourism. 26 marks. How successful indigenous knowledge has been on promoting tourism in South Africa. And then we will simply peruse on this essay. Then we define tourism on the introduction, which occurs when individuals travel from usual places to unusual places for the period of not more than 1 year for various purposes, which can be because of business, culture, leisure, etc. And then we continue we go to the body main part. South Africa benefits directly from tourism because of the growth in the GDP, employment creation, infrastructure development, and welfare gain. Household. How do households benefit from tourism? Tourism industry is labor intensive. We know that it employs people the most. It employs all kinds of labor, kinds of skills, namely semi-skilled, non-skilled, and skilled labor. Households get direct jobs through tourism in hotel and accommodation, infrastructure development projects, self-employment, tour guides, as well as restaurants. This generates income for households and contribute positively to increase in aggregated demand. So we know that tourism simply create job opportunities the most. It is labor intensive. It provides immediate employment. It employs all level of skills within the economy. Then we continue. Household continues. Most of the infrastructure created for tourists is available also for the household or local people to use it. These include roads, hotels, and stadiums. Tourism is a great mechanism of skill development. People are able to gain skills on duty, so that lead to them having more skills that can be used even in future. It requires a variety of skills for which education and training is needed. Local people acquire a variety of skills which include entrepreneurial skills, conservation and preservation skills, martial or tour guide skills, etc. Income earned by households in tourism industry reduces the level of poverty and improves their standard of living. It also gives them opportunities to start their own informal business and sell them to tourists. Businesses, how do they benefit? We know that if ever there is a tourism or there is a tourism attraction in the particular area, business of the area will always benefit. Infrastructure becomes a critical facility to benefit both local and foreign businesses. So business will benefit because the government will provide infrastructure that will be used by businesses in a form of distributing their goods and services. Superstructure consists of businesses that provide accommodation, transport, build attraction, retailing, and recreation services. This superstructure becomes a source of profit for businesses. Businesses benefit through public-private partnership, which brings them a great opportunity to expand their operations. So they form this partnership with the government, and then they receive financial support, or they receive money from the government as they render the service, especially on improving the infrastructure. The public sector provides a range of financial incentives to private sector tourism investment, which includes subsidies, loans, tax concessions. And then we continue with businesses. We know that there's a direct spending by tourists, so as they spend, business will be able to produce more goods and services. Tourism stimulates business environment and help achieve certain socio-economic objectives, such as development of entrepreneurs, BBBE, and SMMEs development. So small business can develop in the area because of the tourism attraction that are within the area. Tourism also offers entrepreneurial opportunities in the informal sector. People can start their very own businesses and earn income and escape poverty. Local products are well marketed internationally, since South Africa has become a popular destination due to its great attractions. The direct spending by tourists is a great motive for business to produce more. This increases profits earned by local businesses. And then we continue with the benefits of tourism. How does the government benefit? We know that if ever there is tourism or there is more tourism, government will always benefit through high tax revenues. So the spending by tourists increase tax revenues by the state. For the state, levying taxes help the government to recover external costs and increase its revenues. Tourism earns the country foreign currencies as foreign tourists pay on their foreign currency. They buy our currency for them to tour to the country. Jobs created by the tourism industry in both formal and informal sector ease the burden on the government and make it easy to fulfill full employment objective. We know that the government is aiming to achieve full employment. So the tourism industry create more jobs, which is of great benefit for the government, because the government will earn more tax revenues and the full employment might be achieved if ever tourism industry keep on creating job opportunities. Tourism serves as a motive for the government to increase infrastructure. We know that the government is put under pressure to improve the infrastructure if there will be some international events that have led to local businesses, local people benefiting over that particular infrastructure provided by the government because of the because of the international events or big events that are happening in South Africa, which involve different world countries. And then we continue infrastructure. We also know that if ever there is high level of tourism, there must be infrastructure. It goes together. So adequate and well-maintained physical infrastructure is essential for tourist destinations. The infrastructure is normally shared between residents and visitors. Local people and also those tourists will benefit through that infrastructure. The government has prioritized economic infrastructure, including elements such as harbors, beaches, and lake access to promote the growth in tourism industry. Most corridors have tourism as an important focus area. Public-private partnerships are often used for the development of the infrastructure in the country. That was for 26 marks. Let's look at additional part. Indigenous knowledge system is successful in promoting tourism in South Africa by offering unique attractions. It encourages foreign tourists to learn about South Africa's indigenous culture, history, and cultural diversity. Giving tourists an opportunity to experience the indigenous culture, e.g., cultural villages such as Shangana in Mpumalanga and Basotho in Free State. Offering inexpensive cultural tours based on indigenous knowledge. And then we continue in the additional part. And then encouraging government to create policies to protect, develop, and promote indigenous knowledge system, e.g., medicine, art, and craft. Expanding the experiences of tourists in township by visiting places such as Soweto, where they can eat and drink indigenous food and drinks. That was for 10 months. Then we go to the conclusion. And then, okay, we continue. Displaying African art and culture, e.g., music, the National Arts Festival held in Grahamstown caters for this need. Developing sites of cultural and historical importance such as Robben Island. The conclusion now. Marketing of tourism products to both domestic and international markets is important for achieving the full growth potential of sector in South Africa. That was for 40 marks. So it was just the example of how you can compile your essay. All essays are important, and one of them will appear under economic issues, and one of them will appear in microeconomics. And then these are some graphs that you need to consider because not all graphs are provided. So the graph that provides economic loss for the perfect market, I guess, let's see. You must be able to draw this graph, and this graph, explain it or interpret it, and then also explain conditions for which this loss can occur. That is our MC. Remember that marginal cost is also the supply curve for the determine the perfect market at its lowest point. On the upward sloping part, this becomes the supply curve going up in there. We neglect the downward sloping part of the MC because supply curve is upward sloping. Also shade your area in there, and then that is the profit, the loss minimization, and then that is our marginal cost. That our average cost positioned above the average revenue. And then the next graph for the economic profit. You must be able to draw this graph and interpret them for both section B and section C in case you come across such. And then let's see that these are our revenues, and then we connect our quantity, and then that is marginal cost. Our revenues are equal to 100, cost equals to 50. Let's see profit maximization. And then we have our average cost that will be coming up there. There it is turning below the AR curve. That means economic profit for the business. Shaded area in there, you must be able to draw the graph, interpret it, and explain the condition. And then also we have the normal profit of break-even a point. That's why we have the likes of vertical and horizontal axis. And then our demand curve, AR equals MR equals to D. And then we connect our quantity. And then the quantity is 100. That is marginal cost as a Nike shape or J shape. And then our AR is 90. That is MC. That means that is the profit maximization. There we have our AC turning along or on the AR curve, meaning revenues are equal to the cost of doing the business. And then other graphs, this is the graph again that indicate the negative externalities. You can see that the supply is shifting back or declining, indicating that the demand remains more than the supply, and that is known as external cost. Be able to draw this graph, and also be able to interpret the graph in case you come across it there. And then we continue with the second graph that indicate the positive externality. That's when the demand is increasing. The demand is increasing from left to the right, indicating that that's a benefit for the society. So be able to draw the graph and explain it. In case you come across it, there it should be easy for you. The shutdown point. Also know the condition for the shutdown, which happens when the MC equals to ABC. There is the point that indicates the shutdown, meaning the firm cannot continue with its operations or cannot continue producing this particular product because it cannot afford to cover its variable cost. So that is known as a shutdown point. Remember that up there, you have what you call your normal profit, because this will be going straight like this, meaning your AC equals to your AR. So you must be able to identify your supply curve here. If ever they say identify the supply curve, because it's always at the lowest point of the MC, the part that is upward sloping. And then let's check the other graph. The entry of new firms. Be able to draw this graph, be able to interpret. If ever new firms are entering the market, what happens in the market? The market supply will be increasing from S to S1, and that will lead to what? That will lead to, originally we had the demand curve in there, and then that will lead to existing firms producing less goods because of the increased competition within the market. Then you see the demand curve declining, going down there to AR1, MR1, and D1. So if ever new firms are entering the market, that compromises existing firms because their profits will be lost. So they will be supplying less due to the fact that there's a high competition. That's why you see the quantity supplied by this firm decreasing from Q to Q1, but the quantity supplied by the market itself is increasing from Q to Q1 because of the fact that within this market, the supply have increased. There are new firms that have been added in the market. So the supply for the market increases, but the supply for individual firm will be decreasing, resulting to the firm making the normal profit in there. You can see the firm is making a normal profit in the long run because now firms are entering the market to be attracted by the existing profits that are enjoyed by the firms that are existing. And then we go to the next one, whereby there's an exit of firms. If firms are leaving the market, what happens within the market? The market supply will be declining. You see the supply curve declining from S to S1, meaning that the market now is not supplying most of goods because firms are leaving the market. In that case, we see the price increasing from 90 to 150, and the price is taken also on the side from 90 to 150. That simply means existing firms that remain in the market will be carrying the great burden on supplying the product to all consumers. That's why you see this firm now having to increase the output from Q to Q1. So the equilibrium point increased from E to E1. So the output produced by the firm is increasing now, meaning the firm will now be enjoying economic profit because the AC for the firm is here and the AR is above. So the firm is enjoying its economic profit because other firms are leaving the market. So it remains with a huge scope to supply the market. So that is the exit of firms within the market. Be able to draw these graphs, be able to interpret them, and also be able to explain all conditions based on them. And then we have this graph also that indicates average revenue, marginal revenue, and total revenue. Also, be able to draw the graph and also be able to interpret the graph. This is the interpretation. That's when we indicate that how total revenue can be maximized. You see, at price at P and Q, and then that's where we maximize our total revenue at this point. From there, it goes down. Be able to draw the graph and interpret the graph. It is very important for you to be able to do that. And then we continue. This is the PPC under market failures. Also, know the importance of this point, and this point. Remember the point inside the PPC, that simply means that point is indicate allocative inefficiency and productive inefficiency because resources are not allocated adequately in here. The point on the PPC where there is an independent curve indicate both the productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. That means the firm is doing very well. The point outside the PPC is unattainable. The firm cannot afford to produce at this point because it does not have enough resources to produce at this point. This is the indifferent curve. Remember that we produce two goods that are satisfying the same utility under the PPC production possibility curve. And then our lesson ends here. I, Mr. Mhlongo, would like to thank you for being with me since February up to now. And I believe that whatever that we have done up to today have helped you a lot. And I believe this lesson will be of a greater incentive to you as you prepare for paper 2 tomorrow. One thing for sure, some of aspects I discuss here will be in the question paper tomorrow. I thank you and enjoy. Ensure that you master. We will meet again. Surely we'll meet in university. Maybe you will be my student. Who knows? Bye-bye.